If you had the chance to go to a college campus and talk to students about money, what would you tell them? Hear what I said in this episode of the Catholic Money Show. This episode is a special one. I recently went out to University of Cincinnati and spoke at one of their Bearcat Catholic nights. My good friend Jeff Stevens is the priest out there. Father Jeff Stevens is the chaplain, and he invited me out to talk about money with his students. So it was a fun night. It was an interesting night. We've had a couple of student questions and really got to flesh out some of the church teaching around money, particularly in the context of college. So please check out this interview. I think it was a great night. I think you will agree. And thank you again to Father Jeff Stevens and Catholic Bearcat for inviting me out. You can learn a little bit more about them at the link in the show notes. Again, check this out. I think you'll love it.
I met Jonathan as a Focus missionary. He served for Focus for 8.5 years, so a vet. We met on the team called the Digital Campus, after the Meat Police, of course. And Jonathan, after he left Focus, started a company with his wife called Wallet Win. Wallet Win is a Catholic financial it provides Catholic financial formation for the whole family. As many Catholics as possible, so that I'm really butchering this, sorry Jonathan, but so that Catholics can find financial freedom and give a fuller yes to our Lord and live maximum fruitfulness. I just want to live maximum everything, so I definitely want to live maximum financial fruitfulness. Jonathan he's co-authored a book called How to Attack Debt, Build Savings, and Change the World Through Generosity, a Catholic guide to managing your money. He's been featured on EWTN, Relevant Radio. He hosts the Catholic Money Show podcast. He's a father of 4, of course, a husband. He's also the owner of this pawn show right here tonight on display for all of you. And so with that, I want to welcome my good friend, Jonathan Texera.
Thank you, Father. Thanks.
All right, so, we really want to get to know our guests on the show. And so I figured the best way to get to know not just you, but the way that your mind thinks would be with a little would you rather.
Okay.
Crowd out there, are you ready for a little would you rather? Yeah! All right, I just want you to really ponder these yourselves. This is super important questions for the sake of your salvation in some respects.
Okay.
So Jonathan, question number 1. Would you rather have super slow internet always or a low phone battery always?
So if the phone battery is low always, it'll never run out, right?
Well, it's always going down.
Okay.
It's always going down. You can never get past 28%.
I'll go low battery.
Battery, okay.
Yeah, low battery.
Okay, how about you out there? Low battery? Got some nods, okay, that's good. Okay, the people agree. Okay, Jonathan, would you rather have to fight an orangutan every 10 years or get attacked by a chicken every time you get into your car?
I think I'm going to take on the orangutan.
Every 10 years?
Yeah.
I mean, if you survive,
That's only a couple times.
You get another 10 years.
Yeah.
If you survive. What about you out there? Think about it. It's relevant for your salvation. Jonathan, would you rather always have maple syrup inside your clothes or always have to be dressed like a clown?
Like it's like spilled inside my clothes.
It's in there. It's like the lining is maple
I
syrup.
think clown.
Nose, face paint, everything?
I think.
Okay. I think we know the man a little better. Well, let's get to know him a little bit more. Get to know how that mind really works. Because I'm a big fan of something we call Freestyle Thursday.
Okay. Okay.
But don't worry, you don't have to spit bars. You just got to spit words. So here's how this game works.
Oh, okay.
I got a series of words. I want to see if you can give me the first rhyme that comes to your mind, the first word that is.
Okay.
Now these are relevant for tonight. Are you ready? We'll start easy. First word, money.
Honey.
Tax.
Jacks.
Apple Jacks. Bank.
Rank.
Broke.
Smoke.
Okay, holy smokes. Okay, we're going to up the ante a little bit here. Cash flow.
Cash flow. Smash mo.
Smash mo. I thought stash grow.
Oh!
All right, net worth.
Net worth. I put my suitcase in the jet berth.
Is that like the belly? Or is that the actual
it's
name
like
of
the
it?
storage compartment.
That made my head hurt. Bitcoin.
Bitcoin. I got dirty shoes, so I'm gonna do a little spit shoin.
Oh man, thank you for opening up your mind to all of us.
Yeah, I'm
All
sorry
right,
about
income.
that. What is it?
Income.
Income.
Yeah. What was it?
Is it ransom?
Ransom.
That's how you get your income, I guess.
Finance.
Finance. Why dance?
Because. Awesome. Come out to the silent disco in 2 weeks, everybody. Baboon.
Baboon.
It doesn't fall in the same
Bad
genre,
room.
but bad room.
Yeah.
Nice. Fat spoon. Everybody, welcome again, Jonathan Texera, to the show. All right, so tonight we're talking about money. Who here has money? Most of us. Who here would want more money in their life? Yeah, I see like all the missionaries' hands go up. Jonathan, I want to know, just going to start off with a very relevant question. Is it a mortal sin to do extreme couponing?
Not mortal. Though, if this isn't, addressed by the church in any particular way, but I think that if your extreme couponing would get in the way of your legitimate responsibilities for your vocation, then it becomes a sin.
Fair enough. Yeah, okay.
So if you're couponing for 40 hours a week, and then now you can't have a job and provide for your family, that's an issue.
For sure. Yeah, relying on the coupons, an issue. So let's talk about money, though.
All right.
Jonathan, what is the purpose of money for a Christian?
Purpose of money. There's a few things that money helps us do. Money helps us see maybe our priorities. So where I'm going to spend money, hopefully that lines up with my priorities. Right, I'm going to spend money going on a vacation with my family, and to do that, I'm going to say no to spending money on, buying more video games or something like that. It allows us, of course, to participate in our economy, to buy things, to support causes, and when if we donate money, well, that allows us a way into the good work being done by the church.
Okay, good. How do we have a proper mindset towards money? Let's say someone struggles with something like a kind of greed or gluttony towards money. Mm-hmm. What's the best way to battle that?
In that particular situation, right, for any vice that we have, we want to look to the corresponding virtue. So if there's greed, if there's selfishness, we look for generosity, perhaps even liberality in using our money. And maybe if you're kind of wanting to hold on to it, you got to go spend a little bit. You need to give it away, things like that. But the way we use our money is really important because it affects, everything, right? You are stressed out if you don't have enough. You find a $20 bill in your pocket from last season, like you're very excited. It can affect our mood. It can affect our relationships. The way we handle money is really important. I think it's maybe a quarter, maybe a third of Jesus's parables are concern money and possessions as the way he wants to illustrate that point. In Luke 3, when John the Baptist is coming out to preach the coming of the Messiah, it's the missionary or the priest's dream come true, right? He says, hey, the Messiah is coming, get ready. And it says, everybody just goes, okay, what should I do? And he says, if you have like 2 cloaks, give one to the guy who doesn't have any, and do the same thing with your food. And then the tax collectors say, well, what should we do? And he says, stop. I'm paraphrasing just a little bit. He says, stop ripping people off. And then the soldiers say, what should we do? Even the soldiers. And he says, don't extort people and be happy with your wages. And it's at that, so it's money, money, and money. That's what we should do to get ready for the Messiah coming. And it's at that point, that's where Luke writes down. And they thought, that's when the crowd thinks, this guy might be it. This might be the Messiah. Just because he talked about money? And all Luke writes down after that is, and then he shared like the rest of the good news about the Lord. That's it. No other details. It was money, 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 because it's about our relationships with how we understand ourselves, how we understand our Father in heaven, how we interact with one another. Money touches nearly every part of our life. So, understanding money helps us understand life. If I understand the way God sees money, the way Jesus talked about money, then I can understand the points he's trying to make when he talks about it.
Yeah, that's super interesting. It seems like we're bound to so many things via money, or at least that money is it's so integral to so many things that we need that are like necessary for our lives, especially in the modern context. Mm-hmm. Seems like so that's super interesting. I guess as you're talking about the scriptures, one verse that comes up is where there's the rich man comes to Jesus. He says, I've lived a good life. I followed the commandments. What more do I need to do? And Jesus says, go and sell everything and come and follow me. Yes. So how do we make sense of that? Because most of us aren't probably being called to be hermits or impoverished nuns. But how do we make sense of that then if we're going to be called to live a lay life with a family? What does it mean for us or those of us to give away everything, to sell everything? How do we make sense of that?
You hit the nail on the head there when you're talking about, right, we each have our own particular call, right? You were asked to become a priest, and I am not. So, right, I can't look to you in your example of, oh, well, if that's what Jesus asked Jeff to do, I guess that's what he's probably asking me to do too. Now, he is asking maybe me to give up whatever it might be that's going to make me turn away from our Lord and go away sad. Whatever it is, I'm not willing to let go of in order to accept what he has for me. Maybe that is money. Maybe that's a particular possession or particular career path or whatever it might be. But there is going to be something that he asks us to give away, to sell, to let go of in order to follow him more closely. And that's the lesson from the rich young man.
So how do we strike a balance with money? So for instance, we took questions via a survey in GroupMe, and one of the questions was, is it sinful to spend a lot of money on a fancy car when that money could have gone elsewhere? And so, you're going to have people are going to make different amounts of money. Mm-hmm. And so people are going to have the capacity. Some people are going to make so much money that they could give more and they could still buy more at the same time. Mm-hmm. So I guess, how do we find the proper balance in what to do with our money, whether that's giving and saving or how much money is too much money to have just universally for anyone? Is that the case for anyone? So how do you strike a balance with your money?
We are all going to be called to manage different amounts of money. If we look at the parable of the talents in the Bible, right? One guy one guy got 1, the guy got 2, the other guy got 5. And it says he gave them these amounts according to their abilities. So even in this example, right, it's set up that different people are going to have different amounts, right? Just so we have a unique call on us in our lives. So yes, we are going to have different ideas or different amounts of money. So the way we use it, the things we buy, right, are going to be different. The extravagant purchase for one person is going to be not a big deal for somebody else, or the other way around too. The church teaches that on one hand, it is a vital component of human freedom in order to have private property. that we should be able to have economic initiative, to be able to work, to earn a living, and to have remuneration for our labors. But then on the other hand, the church teaches something called the universal destination of goods, which is to say, the idea being that in the beginning, God gave all of creation and its goods to all of humanity. So every human has a claim on the goods of the earth and their use. So there's private property is a way that helps distribute the goods of the earth and safeguard them for those who've earned them, or the particular things. So there's this balance of these things are mine, but they're also somebody else's maybe, right? If there's a hungry guy coming knocking on my door, right? He's starving. Well, some of that food in my pantry doesn't really belong to me anymore. It belongs to him, and it's not charity, it's an act of justice to give it to him. A number of the church fathers talked about things like this, and that giving to the poor what is due them is an act of justice, not charity. And so there's a balance. So in the intro mentioned maximum fruitfulness. There's going to be an amount of money where it's going to help me be more fruitful in my life, be a better father, serve the Lord better, etc. Just like a tree, right? You need to give it a certain amount of water and it'll grow the most. If you give it too much, it's going to get sick, it's going to wither, the leaves are going to fall off. So right with money too, and it's different for each one of us. It's not a set number that's going to work for everybody. So there's a max. You're going to be maximally fruitful at a certain amount of money. After that, it's not going to work. It's going to start hurting what you're trying to do, the way you're living, the way you're thinking. And so at that point, that's where you have the too much money. And at that point, then it's okay. Well, everything we earn after this, I guess we're just going to give it away.
Yeah. I heard this story, this super wealthy individual, also a devout Catholic, who started a very famous pizza company. And he very wealthy, decided he was going to build a large house. And he had a spiritual director who I think was maybe fairly well known. And I can't recall who. But anyways, he's building this very large house. And at some point, his spiritual director asked him just a very straightforward but poignant question. Do you need that? Do you actually need that big of a house? And I couldn't tell you exactly how big, but you could imagine what we might consider a mansion of sorts. Do you actually need that? And when he just answered the question honestly to himself, it was, no, I mean, really, I don't. No one actually needs a space that big to live in. Mm-hmm. It's not necessary. And so then he decided to change his whole plans. He converted the whole property into this more communal space, and now it's being used for ministry for many, many people, to my understanding. And so I appreciate that there is a point where it's like you actually just don't need to cross that threshold of how much money you have. Is there any kind of like spirituality to giving, if I can put it that way? Like, how does giving impact you spiritually? Giving money specifically.
Sure. Sorry, I started thinking about the idea of the common good. Maybe we'll get back to that. But giving allows us, right, we put our gifts to use however they might be, right? If we put gifts to use in creating art or whatever, right, we're participating in, right, this little piece of God that we have and we can bring expression to, right, in joining him in creation. In giving, we are now kind of, we're joining with him in providing for another. Mother Teresa would tell people, right, some people are serving the poor. Like we are giving to the Lord and to the poor by going and doing the work. But other people, they get to go and do the work through their giving. So it's a way to participate in the good works that are being done, right? We go to work and we are trading our time. We're converting our time and our talent and our effort into money, right? I will do X amount of work for you for this many hours and you will pay me this much money. So there's an equivalence there that we come to. Or for every T-shirt I sell, I'll get $2, whatever it is. So we've taken time, effort, etc., converted it into money, and now when we give, it's kind of a way to take that money and now convert it back into action, into works, where, however many hours or whatever that I worked, I can convert that back into ministry on campus by donating, to Catholic Bearcat or whatever. I can convert that money back into, feeding the poor, housing the homeless, whatever it might be, through the donation.
Is there a biblical mandate for how much we should give back?
You got a number in mind?
Well, there's a common number out there.
We'll say it on the count of
10.
10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10.
100%.
Oh. All right, you beat me to it.
If it's
yes.
Catholic Bearcat, just give 100%.
110.
Your money.
So yes, you will hear about tithing. Tithing, 10%, all this. Yes, there is biblical precedent there. The Old Testament talks about tithing. 10%, that's where it comes from, right? We hear, I'm blanking on it, sorry. Job? Abraham, right?
Jobus.
To Melchizedek, right? Is that
Okay.
that's Abraham?
Oh, that's Abraham and
Yeah.
Melchizedek.
So he comes and he says he gives a tenth of everything to him, right, from the victories.
Yeah.
So we see it all over the place, right? The only thing that I've ever heard about tithing in the New Testament, and that I personally think it's a little bit of a stretch, Jesus heals the 10 lepers and one of them comes back to say thanks. Seems a bit of a stretch. But it's the same deal as everything else, right? Jesus in the new covenant, he doesn't abolish the law, he fulfills it, and he calls us, I think, to a higher standard, right? It's, hey, you're not allowed to kill anybody, right? That's one of the commandments. You still can't kill anybody, but Jesus said, if you get really mad at somebody, it's just like you killed them. The commandments say, don't commit adultery. And then Jesus says, yes, don't commit adultery, but if you look at someone with lust, just like you've committed adultery. So he calls us to a higher standard. So I think 10%, there's a lot of wisdom there. It's a good number. I think it's a great place to start, really, and see what happens. Some people, if they gave 10% of their income, they could not feed their family. They should not give 10%. Other people, if they gave 10%, wouldn't even notice it was gone. So are they even giving a gift? Right? We're told, I think it was Mother Teresa, right? Love is, right, you give and then it hurts and then you give a little bit more. And so we need to be, our giving should be sacrificial. It should hurt a little bit. Whether we're giving our time, our talent, our treasure, and it's time, talent, and treasure. It's not you get to pick one of the three or two of the three. You have to give all three in some way. And so when you give, you're also, through this economic idea of opportunity cost. So that is this idea, you can only spend money once, right? I bought that poncho, now I can't buy a burrito. You got to pick between the two, right? That same $14 or whatever can go to one or the other. So when I'm giving, I can give $40. I can put that in the collection plate, or I can take that $40 and my family will go out to Chipotle. But if I put it in the collection, I can't go to Chipotle. And if I know that, if I'm paying attention to my money, I know this $40, this could be Chipotle money. I'm gonna put it in the basket. So now I'm giving not only the $40, which is a good gift in and of itself, but I'm also giving the sacrifice of not going out to eat. So I've doubled my gift by actually understanding my money, because you layer it up, right? Like saying you pray twice, like, well, if you pay attention to your money, when you give, you can give twice.
How do you discern those moments when you're like, well, I could give $40 to the church, or I could go buy Chipotle for me and a friend? Is it a matter of budgeting? So like I know how much I should give to the church and I need to fulfill that, or anything else for discerning those like choices?
Budgeting is a huge part of it. So budgeting It's nothing to be scared of. It's nothing to poo-poo. It's not a financial juice cleanse. It's not saying no to everything and sucking the fun out of your life. It's just sitting down and making a plan, like you would if you want to be successful or ordered or whatever it is in any other part of your life, right? If I want to go get ripped, I need to sit down and make a plan, and probably, as you might be able to tell, I haven't made this plan. So I don't really know what I'm talking about right here. But maybe it's probably I have to eat good stuff and I have to lift a lot of heavy things and stuff like that. I'm going to sit down and make a plan and then carry out the plan. If I want to handle my money well, I need to sit down and make a plan. So that's all the budget is. I'm going to have this much money this month. This much is going to go to the church. This much is going to pay for groceries. This much is paying the rent, whatever it is. And then you just live that out. So if I know my budget, I know when I get asked, when I'm considering giving, I know I have the money available. Otherwise, I look at my wallet or I look at the bank account balance or whatever it might be, and I don't know what I'm looking at. Am I looking at my rent money that I need to hold on to so I don't get evicted? Or am I looking at money that is available to give? And because I don't know, I'm probably not going to give. A lot of the times, I don't think it's selfishness or greed that holds people back from giving generously. It's just not knowing what's going on, so I don't know if it's available.
That camp of I don't know what's going on, that's usually where I fall into, I would say. But usually I find myself spending my money on conies for students at Skyline, so it usually feels okay. So that's kind of how I live my life. But should everyone budget? One of our questions that came in was, should I make a budget if I don't have any money? Which might be the case for many people here.
Sure. You might think, you might be, oh, well, that's once I make so much, then I should probably pay attention. But really, any money you have, you should have a plan for. Again, that's all budgeting is. And maybe it's really simple. Maybe it's, food, entertainment, whatever it is. You might not have a lot of different categories that you're responsible for right now in your state of life as a student. Later on, it's going to get a little more complicated. You have more things to juggle and pay attention to. So maybe it's really simple, but you have a plan, or hey, I want to go to, I need to buy tickets for that concert or something. I need to make sure I've got $40 for that or whatever it is. So you need to make a plan. Otherwise, it's just going to fall out of your pocket. It's just going to disappear, probably into Amazon's pocket, right? So whether it's birthday money from grandma or that money, your parents gave you at the beginning of the semester, or that little bit of income that you make from a part-time job, you need to have a plan for it. So in some ways, maybe most importantly, so you know how generous you can be with it. We are called, the church calls us to take care of our needs, those under our charge. For you guys, it's probably not really anybody else, but for me, that'd be my family. And out of whatever's left over, after what necessity requires, the leftover is to be given away, right, to the poor, right? We've hit maybe not even maximum fruitfulness, but we're fruitful and now we can give. There is a great imperative to giving. We have a responsibility to give. We have a responsibility to our brothers and sisters, especially those who are less well off than us. The church is very clear on this in the catechism, in scripture. You can see it in the lives of the saints, in other documents from the church. Over and over again, she tells us, it is the responsibility of the rich to take care of the poor. And in serving them, we serve our Lord. And I'll tell you what, you might feel like a broke college student. You might not have much or even an income, but you are rich. This is what scares me to death, Father. I read that story that Jesus tells about poor Lazarus and the rich man. And I know if I have to pick between the two of those, I know I'm the rich man. And the rich man's the one who goes to hell in the story. The rich man is the one who ignored the poor. Even didn't fully ignore them because he knows his name, right? He goes and he asks in the story, right? He asks Abraham to, send Lazarus to my family that they can change their ways and don't end up like me. He knew who he was, so that's maybe even worse. He knew him enough, this guy who begged on the doorstep, the dogs licked his sores, and he did nothing about it. And when I look at it, I go through that list of like corporal works of mercy, right? I couldn't tell you I don't think I've ever visited anybody in prison. I know that I've had chances to feed the hungry, to clothe the naked, to give water to the thirsty, and I haven't done them. I don't know. I don't want to be a goat, man. Mm-hmm. But at the end, right, the Lord's going to separate the sheep and the goats. What you did or didn't do to the least of my brethren, you did or didn't do to me. And there's a lot of people who need some help, and I don't know.
Yeah, let me push you further with this, because it's a great question. I think that we even face here, like in this area often, because we live in Clifton. Well, let me put it to you this way: St. Monica, St. George is the place of the bells and the smells. Clifton, Ohio is the place of the smells. Smells, and not to denigrate, to diminish the people of Clifton, but you'll run into a lot of homeless people, a lot of more poor people kind of in the streets. And so there is like a perennial question living in this area. What do we do with this? Because I remember going to an FC soccer match when they still played at Nippert Stadium, UC's football stadium. And I remember trying to be generous with my money. I was in seminary at the time, so I wasn't a student, but I was coming to the game, and a homeless person came up and asked for some money. And at the time, I was like, I'm not going to give straight cash for different reasons. I'll offer to buy a meal, which he took me up on. And so I did that, and I kept walking. And then another person came up, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll help this person out as well. And it happened 2 more times. And each time, certainly I'm not trying to build myself up, because honestly, each time I got more and more frustrated. And like, it's like I'm trying to be obedient to the Lord, but now I'm getting really frustrated because now I'm not even getting to this soccer match. But I feel like it's the Lord sending me people who He needs me to help. And so like these kinds of situations can happen where you could be walking through the streets of Clifton all day and never do anything but help out poor people, or downtown Cincinnati. So then you hear these stories of saints who it's like, oh yeah, this saint, I don't know, Gian Jugan, who like maybe brought a poor person off from the streets into, that's a real saint, by the way. She started the Little Sisters of the Poor.
Yep.
And she maybe brought a homeless person off from the streets and like basically gave them her own bed in her house and started to take care of this homeless person. So you mentioned the saints, I believe, and you have other stories, Mother Teresa. It's like there's some heroic generosity occurring there. Mm-hmm. So do you have any, maybe it's personal musings on all of this? Like, what is the extent that we're called to give in this whole area? Is there any way of discerning that?
What I talked about earlier, right? Knowing how much you have available to give is one thing. The other idea is that the poor, or homeless, or whatever's going on, need more than just money. So, right, when we see even in Scripture, right, there's the beggar outside the gate called Beautiful. And who's Peter and maybe John are going in, and he's asking me, I have no silver or gold, but I can give you what I do have, Jesus. And probably change the man's life right there. So that's something we can give. We can give our attention. We can give our time. There was a time we were doing a homeschool co-op thing, and it was downtown Omaha, and there'd be dudes on the corner asking for help, and most of the time it was the same guys. And so, right, it was on this corner we had Jay, and on the other one was Kevin, and we'd bring them some stuff from time to time, but most of the time, right, my wife would go in, pick up the kids, and I would go out and just kind of chat, see what was going on. I've done a number of interviews with Blake Bruyette, who is the director of Christ in the City, an organization that serves the homeless in Denver and Philadelphia and other places. And I think that's like his biggest thing is they need more than money, right? They respect their dignity as human beings is the thing that they need to say their name, to remember who they are, to recognize them. That's something that they might go weeks without that happening. And that is much bigger than giving them, a tenner or taking them out for a meal. Not that you couldn't do those things, but there's so much more. And that is the root of the church's teachings on money, is that economic systems must be set up to respect human dignity and to help people flourish fully in their lives. That's why wages must be just. That's why you need a balance of letting the market do its thing and having some regulation to make sure people aren't taken advantage of. That's why money is important. That's why the church teaches about money, because it will impact people and the way and how it's being used for or towards them, but then also our using money affects our salvation. And so you got to do it well.
I think it's also true, this idea that you cannot outgive God in generosity, which doesn't necessarily mean to be imprudent with your money or to be reckless with it when you're trying to help out other people, I suppose. But my dad told me this story. He grew up in a family with 10 siblings, so he was one of 11, large family. His mom actually stayed at home. His dad worked, so they didn't have a huge amount of money. And my dad said that there was always this constant question in his parents' marriage of, do we have another kid? Do we have another kid? Now we've got 8. Do we have another one? Do we have enough money for it? And my dad said that providentially, every time that they decided that they would attempt to have another kid, and they did, that almost without fail, his dad would either get a raise or like something would happen that would improve their financial situation every new kid that showed up. And it was just a witness to, you really can't outgive God in generosity. So have many kids, many kids.
And be very generous.
And be very generous, because the Lord loves to pay us back in full or beyond that. So I think that is always something to keep in the back of our minds, whether it's money or time or childbearing. Now, we were tracking in I think a helpful, practical direction in terms of what was the topic?
Money.
Money. In terms of giving money, tithing. Well, the topic I want to bring up is debt. So, because we, certainly there could be some out here who are taking school loans. And so I suppose it could be helpful to, if you have any tips on, 1, how to stay out of debt, or 2, how to get out of debt, and maybe they're related to a degree.
Sure.
I think it could be helpful. I would want it to be practical for everyone here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
First, let's just talk about debt. If you have been looking into anything about money from a Christian's perspective, you've probably run into Dave Ramsey. And to listen to him, right, all debt is evil, is bad. And I would say most debt is bad and should be avoided. You shouldn't just throw everything on a credit card and hope it works out. You shouldn't just go wild on school loans to get a useless degree you don't plan on ever using or that you don't really need. But a loan is a financial tool in whatever form it's in that pulls money essentially from the future into now, right? I need this money now to get these degrees, etc., so that I can have this job that is going to pay me money, and I'm going to use some of that now, and then I'll pay you back later with that money that I have, is kind of the idea of a school loan. Now, it's not always maybe a good thing, Maybe there's ways to avoid it, to have less debt that you have to take on, all sorts of ways there. So to get really practical, I would say something I didn't understand when I was a student was that even when I was in college, like you can still apply for and get lots of scholarships. I thought like that boat sailed like when I became a freshman for some whatever reason. And so you can just put your time into finding scholarships, applying for them, and getting them. If you spent 10 hours doing different applications and essays or whatever it is you need to do, finding these things and applying for them, if that 10 hours, right, you're doing multiple ones you're going through, at the end of that, you only win one scholarship for $1,000, you just made $100 an hour. So that's a really great part-time job. So I would do that to lower the amount I need to take. And then when you get out and you are making an income, just the very wise idea of living below your means, right? I know plenty, or a handful, I guess, of doctors who, right, when they're going through med school, certainly, and then we're doing residency and all these other things, right? They make some money, but not like the doctor money that is, they're known for. The ones who have their heads on, right, like, because they just got used to years and years of getting by on like kind of like a regular income, and then, and being $500,000 or whatever in debt, then when their income jumps up, well, they just stay at the normal level or whatever, and then all the rest, they're just throwing that at the debt. And it's a good idea, right, to avoid, and then if you have debt, to get rid of it, because yes, it's pulling money from the future, but what it's doing is obligating you to the past. So it pulled money from the future, but now I'm in the future, right? That's my new present. I have obligations now in the past. The decisions I made, I'm still paying for, which means I have less options and less freedom to consider what's in front of me to serve the present and the future. I feel this call to enter religious life, but I need to pay off all these loans first. I have this feeling that I need to drop everything, move across the country, and take this job that doesn't really pay that well. But I have this mountain of debt that I need to take care of. I don't really know what to do, right? It makes discernment a lot trickier. And so if we can avoid or quickly get rid of the debt, we are now able to have just more options available to us, more freedom to say yes wherever God might be asking us to go.
Does it require a lot of sacrifices to get out of the debt?
Probably, yeah.
Did you have debt?
Yes.
How much?
I feel silly now because it's gone up so bad.
Your debt's gone up?
No, school loans. So right
their debt's going up.
Back in my day. When we got married, I was a couple years out of school and stuff. I didn't know anything about money except how to spend it. So I had some credit card loans and stuff like that. And then
How many credit cards did you have?
I don't know, but I got it. I don't know how many. I mean, there's one maybe I was using the most. So maybe just one, but I didn't know what to do. And so I wasn't good at fundraising early on as a missionary. And I was living in New York City, which can be a little expensive. And I would run out of money, but have to do things. So then I would use the credit card. And I get paid, I'll just pay it off, which I did. So I didn't carry anything, I didn't pay any interest, but then I had less money to go the same amount of time the next month or whatever. And then I had to use the card sooner. And then the next time it was a little sooner. And then I just didn't have enough money to pay it off. So we got engaged, and she should have asked me earlier, but she asked me that day if I had any debt. Little did she know. So I told her about, I have these school loans. I don't really know how much they are. And then I've got this credit card, and it was a couple $1,000. And then she freaked out. She was raised to think about money differently, to not have consumer debt like that. So she did what you shouldn't do, and she gave me the money to pay off the credit card debt. We were engaged for whatever, 10 hours or whatever she does this. That's a bad idea. Don't do that. Wait until you're married. But she did that. Anyway, you think I would have learned my lesson. Because then everybody said, well, you only get one honeymoon, man. Like, just go all out. All right. So I booked us on a 10-day honeymoon to Cancun, and I put it on a credit card that I freshly opened up because that allowed me to take it from 7 to 10 days. We got some free days at the hotel or whatever.
Of course.
And then I forgot I put it on a credit card.
Oh.
And what do you know? We got a message at the hotel on the honeymoon saying, hey, this bill's due. She had no idea. And it was really bad. So we're married for like 2 days, and this huge fight about money.
This is not how honeymoons usually go.
It was no honeymoon, yeah. And we thought, this is not what we want for the rest of our life. Sadly, it's what a lot of people get because they're not paying attention to money. They don't get on the same page with their spouse. They're not paying attention. And so it's a source of fights. It's one of the leading causes of separation and divorce. And we did not want that. So when we got home, we figured out how much we owed. She had a little bit of school loans. I had a whole lot. To me, it was a whole lot. It was about 25 grand altogether, which I know you could probably rack that up in like a semester these days. But back then, that was a lot of money. So we had $25,000 of debt. Working as missionaries, our combined take-home pay for a year was $35,000. We thought, what could we get out of this in a year? And we thought, well, it's like a crazy idea, right? The big audacious goal that I'm going to shoot for, so that if I even get close, and it would maybe take us a year and a half or 2 years, like we're still getting out pretty quick. So that was our goal. And then, I don't know what happened. We got crazy. We started sacrificing. We got really creative. We went down to having only one car. I found a free moped and drove that to campus. We sold a bunch of stuff when we moved. We did some fundraising and got some more income. But out of the way, outdone in generosity, I'd say almost also the Lord can outdo us like when we're doing something that pleases him. And this is not health and wealth prosperity gospel, but we're being responsible with our money. And this mission partner, like a donor who I was trying to track down for months, I just couldn't get a hold of him. Out of nowhere, a check shows up for $1,000 from them. Well, I know exactly where that's going. And so we just played this game of like, how much can we pay at the debt this month? And the biggest trick or whatever to it is, whatever your goal is, paying off debt, saving for a down payment, saving up your emergency savings, whatever it might be, even giving maybe. Get rid of that money and throw it at the goal as soon as you can. We didn't say, our plan is to spend, to pay $2,000 of debt at the end of the month. We'll see if we have that left, because we wouldn't. We paid it like the beginning of the month. And now I have to figure out how to buy the groceries and pay the rent and do whatever else with what I have left. It forces you to do what you said you were going to do, instead of, just letting it fudge a little bit and taking longer and being less disciplined. So yeah, it takes some sacrifice. It takes the bigger, yeah. We paid it off in 8.5 months instead of a year.
Wow,
25K, yeah.
That's impressive.
Uh-huh.
Did you use both sides of the toilet paper? How did you?
Peeled it in half, 2-ply, take it apart and then use. Yeah, no, I don't. It was just really simple. We just lived very simply. We did not go out to eat. My birthday, we went to Sonic for 99-cent root beer floats. That was the splurge.
Celebration.
It was crazy. It's not desperation, it's not to say no, it's because we had a bigger yes. We had things we wanted to do in our life. We wanted to have a family. We wanted to buy a house. We wanted to whatever might be asked of us. And so we knew we would need something. We couldn't just have all this debt around. We couldn't have all these obligations on our income.
4 children.
4 children.
All adopted.
Yes, all came through adoption, which, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, it's cool.
Which is amazing because it's generous in multiple ways, because it actually costs money to get a kid.
It costs so much money to adopt. There's so much paperwork. I can't even tell you how many different types of background checks you have to go through, how many times you get fingerprinted, and every state's different. Like, it's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just generous to like have a kid in general to be able to do that.
Of course.
So thanks for your generosity.
Thank you. Yeah, but
do they use both sides of the toilet paper?
They certainly use so much of it. And they're like cats. They just hit the roll and whatever comes off, that's what they use. But it's been a blessing. We never could have done it. I don't really understand where it all goes, but an adoption, can be anywhere between $30,000 and like $60,000, which is crazy. But I don't know.
But is it worth it?
Absolutely, man. It's awesome. Those kids are great.
What's your favorite part about being a dad? Quick, yeah.
Favorite part about being a dad is making my kids laugh, and then as they're getting a little older, making them roll their eyes.
That's good.
Yeah.
But they roll their eyes and then you make them laugh after that, right?
They're laughing on the inside.
Or are you trying to make them laugh and now they're all...
Oh, yeah. Dad, stop being silly. Yeah.
So
it's
good.
The best.
All right, so I want to just kind of begin to close with a couple just quick answer questions.
Got it.
So not that these all necessarily are quick answer questions, but try your best to just hit us with it.
Lightning round.
This is maybe my favorite question that came in from the survey. Question is, quote, what are taxes, LOL, question mark. And do I need to file them?
Okay, then. Oh, well, I'd like to acquaint you with another acronym, IRS. Yes, the taxes are the money we send the government for the things they provide us. Sure, they're probably wasting some of that money and they're using some other parts of that on things I would rather they not do. But if you don't, well, now you're going to use more of my taxes in jail. So pay your taxes. Yes, you have to pay them. Yes, you should file them. If you earn an income, you should probably be filing your taxes.
Is it sinful to gamble on the Bengals?
I don't know if it's wise.
Betting on that they're going to...
Depends which side you're taking. The church teaches. It's in the catechism. I had this stack of books with sticky notes in them. I left them in the office. It's paragraph. It's going to be 2,400. That's where all the money stuff starts. But it's going to be in there, and it says, to paraphrase, games of chance are not inherently sinful. They become sinful when they prevent us from taking care of the obligations and responsibilities that we have in our life. So going to the casino or making a little bet with the buddies, probably not a big deal. But if now I can't provide for my family, I can't pay my bills, whatever it might be, because I'm gambling, that's when it becomes a problem.
All right, so go crazy. Should you spend money on animals?
You can spend money on animals, yes. The church also, in the catechism, I think this one, I might know the number, 42 to 44, I think. Anyway, animals are a creation from... Are you looking it up? Is that what you did? That's all right. You can fact check. Animals are a creation of God. They are good. We are here to be good stewards, to keep in mind the saints who loved animals. We can spend money on animals, but the church explicitly teaches us that, I want to quote it, but I don't know if I know it well enough. Money should not be spent on animals. There's a qualifier there, like extravagantly or something like that. You should not spend all this extra money on animals that could go to relieve human suffering. And then it says it's one thing, it says animals should not be given love and care on the same level as a human being. It's something like it's more beautiful and more powerful in the real text. So yes, you can have a pet, you can love them, but maybe don't call them your fur baby.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Should I spend money on my boyfriend or girlfriend?
It's a way to show you care. Again, you should have a budget for it. You should know what's going on. Maybe not on the first date, but as things go along, you should probably talk about it.
Should he pay on the first date?
Yes.
Okay. Should he?
And that's up to him what they do. All right? So don't feel pressure to go on some big, like, $200 date. What?
Benihana's?
Maybe. But maybe it's
McDonald's
or stroll in the park.
Amen. Okay.
And also in dating, right? There's levels. There's a spectrum, a journey that you go on of intimacy, right? A lot of times we just think about physical intimacy. Maybe we get to emotional intimacy, right? There's certain things you're not going to do on the first date. You're not going to do certain things. You're not going to, hopefully, you're not going to tell them like your biggest wound from your childhood. And you're also not going to tell them how much you make or how much debt you have or how bad you are with money or how good you are with it.
You wait till the engagement.
You go along, right? Maybe you hold hands at the beginning, then maybe a little peck on the cheek, maybe, there's a continuum. There's phases of financial intimacy that you should go through, from dating to more serious stuff to engagement to marriage.
That's good. How much money should he spend on the ring?
Not what they tell you to. That's way too much money. That's crazy.
What do they tell you?
It's like a couple months' salary or something. It's stupid. It's a lot of money. That's silly. Diamonds are artificially inflated in price because of a worldwide monopoly on diamonds. They're not that rare. They're not that special. They just happen to look pretty. Maybe you don't even need a diamond at all. Maybe you have an old ring from a grandma or somebody. Use that. It doesn't need to be anything fancy.
Awesome. Two final questions.
Okay.
First one can be also brief.
Sorry.
No. You did a good job. You did a great job. Amazing. So basically, I just want to offer you the opportunity before my last question to just offer like a summary, like an in brief summary of the church's perspective on money, kind of the things we've talked about here. If you had to give a brief summary of it.
Mm-hmm.
Or if there's something else that you thought that's important, I wanted people to know it, you could just throw that in there.
I'm gonna. This is probably an outdated reference. I'm gonna phone a friend. I'm going to ask my.
Is it an AOL IM bot?
Oh wow! Don't even. I'm going to ask Leo the 13th. I'm in airplane mode, so this wouldn't go off. I'll turn that off because this is important. I'm going to ask Pope Leo the 13th. He was a pope, and he wrote an encyclical called Rerum Novarum about capital and labor. This is looking into the absolutely world-changing phenomenon or whatever of the Industrial Revolution. Life is different now than it used to be. And so this is him in bringing the church to acknowledge this and to understand it and to start thinking about it. This is one of the basis of Catholic social teaching. And paragraph 22 is particularly incredible. So as far as a last word, as far as a summary, I'm just going to let him do it because it is so good. And he does a fair bit of quoting of Thomas Aquinas in here. But he says, "Therefore, those whom fortune favors are warned that riches do not bring freedom from sorrow and are of no avail for eternal happiness, but rather are obstacles. That the rich should tremble at the threatenings of Jesus Christ, threatenings so unwanted in the mouth of our Lord, and that a most strict account must be given to the supreme judge for all we possess. The chief and most excellent rule for the right use of money is one the heathen philosophers hinted at, but which the church has traced out clearly and has not only made known to men's minds, but has impressed upon their lives. It rests on the principle that it is one thing to have a right to the possession of money, and another to have a right to use money as one wills. Private ownership, as we have seen, is the natural right of man, and to exercise that right, especially as members of society, is not only lawful, but absolutely necessary. It is lawful, says Thomas Aquinas, for a man to hold private property, and it is also necessary for carrying on of human existence. But if the question be asked, how must one's possessions be used? The Church replies, without hesitation, in the words of the same holy doctor, man should not consider his material possessions as his own, but as common to all, so as to share them without hesitation when others are in need. Whence the apostle with command the rich of this world to offer with no stint to apportion largely. True, no one is commanded to distribute to others that which is required for his own needs and those of his household, nor even to give away what is reasonably required to keep up becomingly his condition in life, for no one ought to live other than becomingly. But when what necessity demands has been supplied, and one standing fairly taken thought for, it becomes a duty to give to the indigent out of what remains over. Of that which remaineth, give alms. It is a duty, not of justice, save in extreme cases, but of Christian charity, a duty not enforced by human law. But the laws and judgments of men must yield place to the laws and judgments of Christ, the true God, who in many ways urges his followers the practice of almsgiving. It is more blessed to give than to receive, and who will count a kindness done or refused to the poor as done or refused to himself. As long as you did it to the least of my brethren, you did it to me. To sum up, then, what has been said, whoever has received from the divine bounty a large share of temporal blessings, whether they be external and material or gifts of the mind, has received them for the purpose of using them for the perfecting of his own nature, and at the same time that he may employ them as the steward of God's providence for the benefit of others. He that hath a talent, said Gregory the Great, let him see that he hide it not. He that hath abundance, let him quicken himself to mercy and generosity. He that hath art and skill, let him do his best to share the use and utility thereof with his neighbor.
Amen. Thank you for that. And that was beautiful. It definitely makes me think that we have such a great treasure, no pun intended, as Christians, recognizing that we have so much to give the world, and therefore we have a responsibility in that as well. So we've received from Christ a moral law which doesn't exist apart from Christ. We're the only ones, ultimately, who have the ability to not only teach this moral law, but also live it out in a way that is attractive and also that bespeaks its glory. So we've received a moral law, and as Christians, we are stewards of that. We have the responsibility to present that, to live that out before the world. We've received an understanding of relationship and love, which the world does not understand. The world does not understand love like we understand love. We're the only ones who understand love as a gift of self to the other, as willing the good of the other. The world often sees love as a completely different thing. We have a responsibility to steward that understanding well, which means to preach it, to share it, but also to live it out. And we also have, what we've received from Christ is an understanding of what it means to give, to have something, even if it's money, and then to know that we are called to give it radically, generously, in the same way that he gave of himself, that the Father in the story of the prodigal son willingly, recklessly even gave away his inheritance, the inheritance to his young son, knowing probably what his son was intending to do with it, and yet he gave anyways. And so there's this incredible precedent in the scriptures, in our Christian lives, of giving. And so we have a responsibility to live that out, because otherwise the world won't see it, and the world will suffer for it, and the world will live less abundant lives because of it. So I just feel like, the Pope there and you, Jonathan, have done such a great job of expressing this of how we have received much, whether that is our literal money or our understanding of what to do with our money, and there's a responsibility, a call to steward that well, to give it well. Jonathan, my last question, and again, this can be like elevator speech length, is because I think this could be so telling of so many things, and I just want to hear this from you, is basically, well, you can offer your conversion, if there's a lot there, then we'll try to keep it concise, but also the main question is, why follow Jesus? I just kind of want to end with that.
Ooh,
yeah,
that's a question.
No. And I think it's important to always bring it back to that.
Yes,
as well.
Absolutely, yeah, it is the reason we're here. I grew up in the church. I didn't understand why the other kids were screwing around and not paying attention at CCD, right, religious ed, on Wednesday nights. I was like, pay attention, what are you doing? I went to youth group. I went to World Youth Day. I did all the stuff, right? I served Mass, all of that. And when I went to college, I thought, here's my shot. I need to live. I need to make a decision. Because right now, I'm living one way on Sunday morning for an hour, and I'm living a different way the rest of the week. I need to pick which way I'm going to live now that I'm on my own here. And I thought, well, 1 week versus 167 or whatever it is, I know which one wins. I'm going to go the whole week that way. And that was my plan. And I was going to fade out. I was going to go to a Protestant church and then stop going to Protestant church. I don't know. I knew that much at least. So then that was my plan. And I got to college, and before orientation or whatever, my folks took me to the Catholic Center. We went to Mass, and the campus minister gave a little spiel afterwards, and they did a Thursday night dinner thing. It's hey, you can go to that. You don't have to eat the dorm food. That was my dad. I was like, okay, Dad, having my plan in mind. And I fill out the card or whatever, and then when I get on campus, I get contacted by a missionary. And again, I'm not against the church. I'm indifferent. I don't know, what's it ever done for me? Except save my soul. So whatever, I'm sure, he seems like a nice guy, I'll get together with him. Then he's asking me, you go on this retreat? He's like, I don't know, maybe. I went. And then everybody on that retreat was so different than everyone else I had met so far. I could tell they actually cared about me. They wanted to know about me. They wanted my good. We had adoration. I went to confession in the first time for probably a long time. It totally changed my life. I changed my schedule so I could go to the thing on Thursday that I thought I never would. I learned how to read the Bible, how to pray, all these things. It totally changed my life, and I understood. 1 week, I couldn't go back to just living 1 hour of my life every week for the Lord. He wanted all of it. And then we never got to this, but he wants all our money. 10% is not enough. He wants the whole thing. I was giving him, 10% when I hardly believed in him. He wants all of our lives. He wants all of our money too. So, when I budget money to take my daughter out to ice cream, that glorifies God because I'm living my vocation. I am investing in another human being. I am being a father. That gives glory to God. That's a good use of my money. So he wants my whole life. I've got to say no to things. Just today, bro, just today, at Mass, you're reading the gospel, and it's ask, and it'll be given you.
It'll be answered. Yeah.
It'll be, Seek and you will find. Knock and it'll be open to you. And I'm praying afterwards, in adoration, in exposition. And I said, what do you want me to ask for? What door do you want me to knock on? And what do you want me to seek? Getting goosebumps right now. I'm feeling a little vulnerable up here. But he said, I felt it. I heard, not like
called me on the phone, but you hear it in your heart or whatever. And it was, I want you to ask what my will is. I want you to ask for my will to be done, not yours. I want you to knock. Nope, sorry. Seek. I want you to seek. The last one's the good one. Shoot. I wasn't planning on sharing this. I want you, so we'll just skip to it. I want you to knock on the innermost door of your heart and let me in, and invite me in. And I thought, even today, even whatever it's been, like over 20 years since this big conversion, I'm like, that's a big ask. Am I ready for this? And then I did it, and it was amazing. He wants the whole thing. Whatever it is, right? Whatever it is, I have two choices. We have two choices in front of us. I can go follow him, or I can walk away sad. And he's gonna give me that choice over and over and over again in my life. And I know he will also give me the grace, if I'm willing to accept it, to keep choosing him.
Amen. Amen to that. That was awesome, Jonathan. Thank you so much. So with all of that said and in mind, we wanted to issue another new challenge here tonight. And I'll have Carissa throw this up on the board. So there's so many aspects to giving, and so many of you are already doing so much of this, which is giving your time, giving your energy to do mission with us, with our missionaries. And this has been on my mind kind of since the beginning that I came here at the beginning of last school year, which is encouraging also to give financially, which always feels kind of uncomfortable to make that invitation, but I hope all of this is kind of fleshes this out, that this is not about giving money just because we want money, but for two reasons. One, because there is a call upon our lives to give, including of our money, that the Lord would be the king of all of it, even our finances. So again, that ties into the spirituality of giving. And when I give with my money, I'm learning how to give in other areas of my life. But two, because we want to reach more and more students here on campus, which is something that I say over and over again. And it's the truth of the matter. And money, for better or for worse, is a part of that. It's truly a part of us being able to reach more students for many different reasons, because we have to pay staff members here. And we are involved in paying for missionaries being here. And we pay to host dinners and to bring in speakers, and all these things take money. And compared to other campus ministries, I guess I'll say this frankly, we are probably at the bottom of the totem pole as far as how big our budget is. And so we have managed to offer, I hope, dynamic things to you all on a rather small budget, because people have sacrificed themselves in order to help our ministry because they believe in it. Like Jonathan, who's here, very much so, just on his own goodwill. Other entities like Damascus who have come down, and we've paid them a fraction of what they've asked for because that's what we have, but they believe in our mission. They want to reach students here as well on our behalf. And so we want to do more because we want to reach more. And so all this is why I want to invite you tonight into a challenge. Super simple. It's the $5 a month challenge, which in some respect might sound like that's not a lot at all. I hope it sounds like that. And you might say, I don't have any money at all. And so again, like Jonathan said, if you literally don't have any money, then you shouldn't give. You should be still trying to live a prudent, healthy life. But if you have $5 to give a month, think about it this way. That would be $60 total for the whole year. If we had 100 people giving $5 a month for a whole year, that would equal $6,000, which we kind of were discussing, what could that pay for? That could pay for a whole half year of weekly Cairo dinners, and everybody wants more food. So for $5 a month, we could have much more food. We could do many more things. We could bring in speakers and pay them a legitimate price. A worker's worth his wage, and we haven't been meeting that, to be frank. So we want to be able to pay speakers who come in a legitimate stipend. Or we want to do fun things, like we enjoyed going to play pickleball. That costs money. We could do even more. We could do more fun things. So there's so much that we want to do, not for the sake of just doing, but for the sake of reaching more and more souls. And so just want to invite you into this evening. Even if you want to pull out your phone right now, you don't have to give right now, but if you want to pull out your phone right now and scan this QR code so you can be taken on your phone to our giving page, and so you have it, and you can discern if you can give $5 a month, or if you can give more, or even if you can give less, or if you're not in a place to give, totally understandable. But it's just something that is actually integral to our lives as Christians, and also integral to our mission here of trying to reach more souls and save them from the hands of evil, bring them into the hands of complete, perfect love, Jesus Christ, so that more and more can be rejoicing in heaven with us someday. So that's the invitation, and I just appreciate you hearing us out on it and being open to it this evening.
Thank you again to Father Jeff Stevens and Catholic Bearcat for having me out. If you want to learn more about the great work that they are doing, you can check them out at the link in the show notes. Bye, and God bless.